Have you ever opened a book, read a few lines, and then closed it because it felt too hard or too boring? Or maybe you thought, this is not helping my English. You are not alone. Many learners feel confused. They try courses, they watch videos, they learn rules. But still, when they try to speak, nothing comes out. They feel stuck. They feel slow. And sometimes they feel like giving up. But what if I tell you something simple, something powerful, something that can change everything for you? What if I tell you that one simple book, yes, just one, can teach you more English than many expensive courses? This is not magic. This is a different way of learning, a deeper way, a more human way. Comment if you've ever felt this way. And stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will not only understand this secret, you will feel ready to start your real English journey today. Chapter 1. The lie we believe about learning English. There was a time when I believed something very common. I believed that to learn English, I needed a perfect course. I thought I needed a teacher who speaks fast and perfectly. I thought I needed big grammar books, long rules, and difficult exercises. And maybe you believe the same thing. Maybe you think that learning English means sitting quietly, writing notes, memorizing words, and trying to be perfect. But slowly, I started to feel something strange. I was learning, but I was not improving. I knew many words, but I could not speak. I understood some grammar, but I could not think in English. It felt like I was building something, but it had no life inside it. This is the first truth you need to understand. Learning English is not about collecting knowledge. It is about building a connection, a real connection with the language. And most courses, they don't teach this. They teach rules. They teach structure. They teach perfection. But they forget one important thing. You are a human, not a machine. Let me ask you something simple. When a child learns a language, do they open a grammar book? Do they learn rules first? No. They listen. They feel. They repeat. They make mistakes. And slowly, they grow. Their language becomes natural. It becomes part of their life. But when we grow up, we forget this. We try to learn like robots. We try to be perfect before we even begin. This is where the problem starts. Because perfection is slow. Perfection creates fear, and fear stops your voice. Now here is something powerful. A book, a simple book, can teach you what courses cannot. Why? Because a book gives you stories. It gives you emotions. It gives you real sentences. Not just rules, but living language. When you read a story, you don't just learn words. You feel them. You see them. You imagine them. And this changes your brain in a very deep way. Think about this. When you read the sentence, "He walked slowly in the rain," you don't just see words. You see a man. You see rain. You feel something. Maybe sadness. Maybe peace. And without knowing, your brain is learning English naturally, deeply, silently. This is the power that most courses ignore. I remember one moment very clearly. I was reading a simple story. The English was easy, the sentences were short. But something happened. I forgot that I was learning. I was just reading, just feeling. And then suddenly I realized I understood everything. No translation, no thinking, just understanding. That moment changed me because I saw something very important. When you stop trying to learn, you start learning faster. This is the second truth. English is not a subject, it is an experience. Most learners sit with books like they are studying for an exam. They underline words, they write meanings, they try to remember everything, but they don't enjoy, they don't feel. And because of that, their brain stays closed. But when you read like a story, like a movie, something opens inside you. You become curious. You want to know what happens next. And this curiosity, this simple feeling, is stronger than any motivation. Here is a retention moment you must remember. You don't fail English because it is hard. You fail because you learned it in a way that killed your curiosity. Let that sink in. Now imagine this. You have one simple book. Not too hard, not too easy, and every day you read just a little. You don't rush. You don't force yourself. You just read and feel. Slowly, sentences start to stay in your mind. Words start to repeat. Your brain starts to recognize patterns. And one day, without warning, you speak. Not perfectly, but naturally. That is the moment when you realize this book is doing something that no course ever did. Because this book is not teaching you English. It is growing your English. And growth is always slow, but always real. Another powerful truth is this: courses teach you what to say. Books show you how language lives. There is a big difference. In courses, you learn sentences like, "How are you? I am fine." But in books, you see how people really speak. You see emotions. You see thoughts. You see life. And slowly, your English becomes alive too. Now I want you to think about your own journey. Be honest. How many courses have you started? How many have you finished? And even if you finished, how much did you really use? This is not your fault. This is how the system is built. But now, you have a chance to change it. You don't need more courses, you need a better connection. And that connection can start with one simple book. Not a big one, not a difficult one. Just a book that you can enjoy. A book that makes you feel something, because feeling is learning. And when you feel the language, you remember it forever. Here is your final thought for this chapter. You are not bad at English. You were just taught in a way that was not made for you. But now, you are ready to learn differently. And in the next chapter, I will show you something even deeper. Something that will change how you see books forever. Chapter 2. The Secret Power. Hidden inside a simple book, there is something very quiet, very simple, and very powerful about a book. At first, it looks normal. Just pages. Just words. Nothing special. But if you stay with it, if you give it your time, it slowly starts to change you from inside. Not fast, not loudly, but deeply. And this is what most people do not understand. They look at a book and think, this is too simple. This cannot help me. But the truth is the opposite. The simpler the book, the stronger the foundation it builds inside your mind. Let me tell you a small story. There was a learner who tried everything. Courses, apps, grammar rules, long videos. Every day he worked hard. But still, when someone asked him a simple question in English, he became silent. His mind froze. His heart felt heavy. He knew many things, but he could not use them. One day he became tired. Not lazy, just tired. So he stopped everything. No courses, no pressure. He picked up a very simple storybook, almost like a child's book. At first, he felt strange. Is this too easy for me? He thought. But he kept reading, slowly, calmly, without fear, and something started to happen. The words felt familiar. The sentences felt natural. He did not need to translate every line. He started to understand directly. His mind was not fighting anymore. It was flowing. Day by day, the story became part of him. He remembered sentences without trying. He started to speak small lines to himself. Not perfectly, but freely. And then one day, something surprising happened. He answered a question in English, without thinking. That moment was small, but it was powerful. Because for the first time, English was not a problem. It was a part of him. This is the hidden power of a simple book. It removes pressure. It removes fear. It creates flow. And flow is where real learning happens. Most people think learning must be hard to be valuable. But this is a big misunderstanding. Hard learning often creates stress, and stress blocks your brain. But simple learning, calm learning, it opens your brain. It invites the language in. Here is something important you must remember. Your brain does not learn well under pressure. Your brain learns best when it feels safe and relaxed. And a good book gives you exactly that. When you read a story, you are not afraid of making mistakes. No one is watching you. No one is judging you. You are free, and this freedom is very powerful. Because in this space, your brain starts to connect ideas naturally. You begin to see patterns. You begin to feel how sentences are built. You begin to understand without asking, why is this like this? You just know. This is how real language lives inside you. Now think about courses again. Many courses give you rules. This is past tense. This is present tense. This is correct. This is wrong. And slowly, your mind becomes full of questions. Am I right? Is this correct? Should I say this or that? And when you speak, all these questions come together and they stop you. But when you learn through a book, you don't ask these questions all the time. You see the language again and again. And slowly, your brain learns what feels right. This is natural learning. This is human learning. Here is a strong moment for you. You don't become fluent by knowing more rules. You become fluent by feeling what is right. And feelings grow through experience, not pressure. A book gives you that experience. It gives you time with the language. It gives you repetition without boredom. It gives you emotion. And emotion is the secret key to memory. Think about your life. You don't remember every day, but you remember emotional moments. Why? Because emotion makes things strong in your mind. The same happens with language. When you read a story that makes you happy, or sad, or curious, the words stay with you longer. This is why one simple story can teach you more than 10 lessons, because it touches your heart, not just your mind. Another important thing is this. A book teaches you patience. In today's world, everything is fast. People want quick results, quick fluency, quick success. But language does not work like that. Language grows slowly. Like a tree, you water it every day. You give it time, and one day, it becomes strong. A book helps you build this habit. You read a little every day. Not too much, not too fast, just enough. And this daily habit becomes your power. Because consistency beats intensity. Even 5 minutes every day with a good book can change your English more than 1 hour of stressful study. Now imagine your future for a moment. You are sitting somewhere quiet. You open your book. You read a few lines. You understand them. You feel them. You smile. And then later, you speak those same words in your own way. Not perfect, but real. This is not a dream. This is possible. And it starts with one decision. To trust the process. To trust the simplicity. To trust that a small book can create a big change. Here is your final thought for this chapter. You don't need more information. You need more connection with the language. And a simple book is your bridge. In the next chapter, we will go deeper. We will talk about why most people read, but still don't improve, and how you can read in a way that transforms your English. Chapter 3. Why most people read, but still don't improve. Many people read books in English. They spend time. They turn pages. They finish stories. But still, their English does not grow. They feel the same. They still cannot speak. They still translate in their mind, and slowly they start to think, maybe reading is not for me. But the truth is very different. The problem is not reading. The problem is how they read. Let me explain this in a very simple way. Imagine you are eating food. You take big bites. You eat very fast. You do not taste anything. You finish quickly, but after that, you feel nothing. No energy. No satisfaction. This is how many people read. They rush. They try to finish the book. They focus on speed, not feeling. And because of that, the brain does not absorb the language. Reading is not a race. It is an experience. When you read too fast, your brain does not have time to connect. It sees words, but it does not feel them. It moves forward, but it does not grow. Now there is another problem. Many learners stop again and again. Every time they see a new word, they stop. They open a dictionary. They translate. They try to understand everything perfectly. And this breaks the flow. This creates pressure. This makes reading heavy and slow. So now you have two extremes. One person reads too fast and feels nothing. Another person reads too slowly and feels tired. Both are reading, but neither is growing. So what is the right way? The right way is balance. You read slowly enough to feel, but not so slowly that you lose the story. You understand enough to continue, but not everything. This is very important. You do not need to understand every word to understand the meaning. Let that stay in your mind. When a child listens to a story, they do not understand every word, but they understand the situation. They understand the feeling, and slowly, their brain fills the gaps. You can do the same. When you read a sentence and you understand the general idea, move forward. Do not stop for every small word. Trust your brain. It is learning quietly. Here is a strong moment for you. If you stop for every word, you stop your growth. If you trust the flow, your brain grows naturally. Now let me tell you about another mistake. Many learners read with fear. They read like they are taking a test. They ask themselves again and again, do I understand this? Is this correct? Am I learning? This creates pressure. And pressure closes your mind. Reading should feel like freedom. It should feel like you are exploring something new, not fighting something hard. When you enjoy the process, your brain opens, and when your brain opens, learning becomes faster. I remember a time when I changed my way of reading. Before, I used to stop at every difficult word. I used to feel tired. I used to think reading is hard. But then I made a small change. I decided to read like I watch a movie. I did not stop too much. I focused on the story. I tried to feel the scene. And something amazing happened. I started to enjoy reading. And when I enjoyed, I continued. And when I continued, I improved. This is the simple truth. Enjoyment creates consistency. Consistency creates improvement. Now think about your own experience. When do you learn faster? When you are forced or when you are interested? The answer is clear. Interest is power, and a good book creates that interest. But you must read it in the right way. Let me give you a simple idea you can use today. When you read, imagine the scene in your mind. If the book says, "She is walking in the park," close your eyes for a moment. See the park. See the person. Feel the moment. This small action makes a big difference because now you are not just reading words, you are living the language. And when you live the language, it becomes yours. Another powerful idea is to repeat small parts, not everything, just 1 or 2 sentences that you like. Read them again, speak them softly, feel the rhythm. This helps your brain remember naturally. You are not forcing memory. You are creating memory. Here is another retention moment. You don't learn English by reading more. You learn English by reading better. Quality is stronger than quantity. Even 1 page read with feeling can change more than 10 pages. Read with stress. Now imagine this. You sit with your book. You read slowly. You understand the story. You feel relaxed. You repeat a sentence you like. You smile. And you want to read more tomorrow. This is the correct path. This is the natural path. And this path leads to real fluency. Because now, English is not something you fight. It is something you enjoy. And when you enjoy something, you never stop. Here is your final thought for this chapter. Reading is not about finishing a book. It is about letting the book change you. And when you read in the right way, even a simple book becomes your teacher. In the next chapter, we will go even deeper. We will talk about how one small daily reading habit can slowly build your confidence and make you speak without fear. Chapter 4. The small daily habit that changes everything. There is something very powerful that most people ignore because it looks too small. It does not look exciting. It does not look fast. It does not look like success. But this one thing, this small habit, can change your English completely. And that thing is simple. Reading a little every day. Not for 1 hour, not with pressure, just a few minutes. Calmly, slowly, honestly. Many learners make one big mistake. They wait for motivation. They say, "I will start when I feel ready." Or they say, "I will study when I have more time." But the truth is, that day never comes. Because motivation is not something you wait for. Motivation is something you create. And you create it by starting small. Let me tell you something very real. Big actions feel powerful, but they do not last. Small actions feel weak, but they stay. And what stays changes your life. Imagine this. You decide to read your book every day for just 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes. It feels easy. It feels possible. You do it today. You do it tomorrow. You do it again the next day. Slowly, it becomes a habit. You don't think about it too much. You just do it. And then something surprising happens. You start reading more than 5 minutes. Because now, there is no pressure. You are not forcing yourself. You are simply continuing. This is how habits grow. Not by force, but by flow. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to study English for a long time in one day? Maybe 1 or 2 hours? You feel tired. Your mind becomes heavy. You forget things quickly. And the next day, you don't want to study again. This is the problem with big effort and no consistency. But when you do a little every day, your brain stays fresh. Your mind stays open. And learning becomes part of your life, not a burden. Here is a powerful moment you must remember. You don't become fluent in one day. You become fluent one small day at a time. Let that stay with you. Now think about this deeply. When you read your book every day, your brain sees English again and again. Words repeat, sentences repeat, ideas repeat, and this repetition is very important because repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity builds confidence. At first, everything feels new. Everything feels difficult, but slowly, things start to feel easy. You recognize words faster. You understand sentences quicker. You don't need to translate all the time. This is not magic. This is consistency. Another important thing is this. When you read daily, you remove fear, because fear comes from distance. When something is far from you, it feels scary. But when you see it every day, it becomes normal. English becomes normal. And when English becomes normal, speaking becomes natural. I remember a time when I felt afraid to speak even simple sentences. I thought too much. I worried too much. But when I started reading every day, something changed. I was not trying to speak. I was just reading. But slowly, words started to come to my mind easily. Sentences felt ready inside me. And one day, I spoke without fear. Not perfect, but free. That freedom came from daily practice. Not from one big lesson. Not from one perfect day. But from many small days. Now imagine your life again. Every day, you take a few minutes. You sit with your book. You read. You feel calm. You enjoy the story. You learn without pressure. And slowly, you become someone who reads English every day. This is an identity change. You are no longer a person who tries to learn English. You are a person who lives with English. And this identity is very powerful. Because when your identity changes, your actions follow. Here is another retention moment. You don't need more time. You need a better daily habit. Even the busiest person can find 5 minutes. And those 5 minutes can change everything. Now let me give you one simple idea. Choose a fixed time for your reading. Maybe in the morning. Maybe before sleep. Keep it simple. Keep it easy. Do not make it complicated. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to show up. Because showing up every day is the real success. Some days you will feel tired. Some days you will feel bored. Some days you will feel like stopping. But in those moments, remember this. You are not reading for today. You are building your future. And your future is built by small actions. Done again and again. Now slowly you will see changes. Your mind will feel clearer. Your confidence will grow. You will start to think in English without trying too hard. And most importantly, you will start to believe in yourself. Because belief comes from action, not from thinking. Here is your final thought for this chapter. Small daily steps may look slow, but they take you further than big actions that don't last. And your simple book becomes your daily teacher. In the next chapter, we will explore something even deeper. We will talk about how reading a book can help you think in English, not translate, and speak more naturally. Chapter 5. How a book teaches you to think in English. There is a moment every English learner dreams about. A quiet moment, a powerful moment. The moment when you stop translating in your mind and you start understanding directly. No delay, no confusion, just clear meaning. And maybe you think this moment is far away. Maybe you feel it is too difficult. But the truth is, this moment is closer than you think. And one simple book can take you there. Let us first understand the problem. Why do you translate? Why does your mind go back to your own language again and again? It is not because you are weak. It is not because you are slow. It is because your brain is trying to feel safe. It knows your first language very well, so it uses it as a bridge. Every English word comes, and your brain says, wait, let me check this in my own language. This creates a delay. This creates pressure. And slowly, it becomes a habit. But here is the important truth. Translation is not your enemy. It is just a stage, and you are ready to move beyond it. Now imagine this. You are reading your simple book. The sentences are easy. The story is clear. You are not stopping too much. You are following the flow. And slowly, your brain starts to recognize patterns. It sees the same words again and again. It sees the same sentence structures again and again. Without effort, your brain starts to connect meaning directly to English words. This is the beginning of thinking in English. It does not happen in one day. It happens quietly, slowly, naturally. At first, you may still translate some parts. That is okay. Do not fight it. Do not feel bad. Just continue reading. Because every time you see a word in a clear situation, your brain becomes a little stronger. For example, when you read, "She is happy," you don't need to translate happy every time. You feel it. You understand it. And after some time, when you hear or think the word happy, your brain reacts directly. No translation, just feeling. This is how thinking in English begins. Now let me share something very powerful. Your brain learns faster when meaning comes before words. What does this mean? It means when you understand a situation first, the words become easy. But when you focus only on words without feeling the situation, your brain becomes confused. A book helps you see the situation. It gives you context. It shows you life. And because of this, your brain connects meaning naturally. Courses often give you isolated sentences. This means this. That means that. But there is no life inside it. There is no feeling. So your brain struggles to remember. But a book, a story, it is full of life. And life creates understanding. I remember one moment very clearly. I was reading a simple story. A character said, "I feel tired today." It was such a small sentence. So simple, but something changed. I did not translate it. I felt it. I understood it directly. And then later, in my real life, I said the same sentence to myself. "I feel tired today." That was the moment I realized I was thinking in English. Not perfectly, but naturally. And that is the goal. Not perfect English, natural English. Here is a strong moment you must remember. Fluency is not fast translation. Fluency is direct thinking. Let that stay in your mind. Now let us go deeper. When you read daily, your brain builds connections between words. It starts to see how words live together. Not just single words, but groups of words, phrases, small patterns. And these patterns become your tools when you speak. You don't think word by word. You think in chunks. Like, I want to go, I feel good, I don't understand. These small chunks come from repetition, and repetition comes from reading. This is why a book is so powerful. It gives you natural repetition without making you bored. You see the same patterns again and again, but in different situations. And your brain learns without pressure. Now imagine this. You are in a real conversation. Someone asks you something simple, and suddenly, words come to your mind. Not because you studied them, but because you have seen them many times in your book. This is real learning. This is deep learning. And this is how confidence is built. Because confidence does not come from knowing rules. Confidence comes from familiarity. When something feels familiar, you are not afraid. And when you are not afraid, you speak. Another important idea is this. When you think in English, you become faster. Your mind becomes light. You don't carry two languages at the same time. You don't struggle to find words. You just express. This is freedom. And this freedom starts with small steps, with simple reading, with daily connection. Now I want you to imagine your future again. You are walking somewhere. You see something. And suddenly, a sentence comes in your mind, in English. You don't force it. It just appears. This is thinking in English. And it is possible for you. Not because you are special, but because you are human. And this is how humans learn language. Here is your final thought for this chapter. You don't need to push English into your mind. You need to let English grow inside your mind. And a simple book gives it the space to grow. In the next chapter, we will explore something even more exciting. We will talk about how reading a book can slowly give you the confidence to speak, even if you feel shy or afraid right now. Chapter 6. From silent reader to confident speaker. There is a quiet fear inside many learners. You read, you understand, you follow the story. But when it is time to speak, everything stops. Your mind goes blank. Your heart beats faster. You feel shy. You feel small. And you start to think, maybe I can read, but I cannot speak. If you have ever felt this way, I want you to know something very important. This is not your weakness. This is a normal step in your journey, and the same simple book that helped you read can also help you speak. Let us understand why speaking feels so difficult. When you try to speak, your brain tries to do many things at the same time. It tries to find words. It tries to check grammar. It tries to be correct, and all of this happens very fast, so your mind becomes heavy, and when your mind becomes heavy, your voice becomes silent. But here is the truth that can change everything. Speaking is not a new skill. Speaking is a result of what is already inside you. If your mind has clear, simple English inside it, speaking becomes easier. And how do you build this inside your mind? You already know the answer. Through reading, through repetition, through feeling the language every day. When you read your book again and again, something powerful happens. Sentences start to stay in your memory, not because you try to remember them, but because you have seen them many times. They become familiar, they become natural, and one day, those same sentences come out of your mouth. This is how speaking begins. Not with pressure, not with fear, but with familiarity. I remember a small but powerful moment. I was reading a story. A character said, "I don't want to go." Such a simple line. I read it many times. I felt it. And then one day, in my own life, I used the same sentence. I said it without thinking. I said it naturally. I don't want to go. It was not a big sentence, but it was my sentence. And that moment gave me confidence, because I realized something important. I did not learn that sentence. I lived that sentence. And when you live the language, you can speak it. Now think about your book again. It is full of simple sentences, real sentences, useful sentences. And every time you read them, you are filling your mind with speaking material. You are preparing your voice without even trying. This is why a book is better than many courses, because it does not just teach you what to say, it shows you how people really speak. Now let us go deeper. Many learners wait for the perfect moment to speak. They say, "I will speak when I am ready," but this moment never comes, because readiness is not something you feel first. It is something you build by doing. So instead of waiting, you start small. You take one sentence from your book, just one, and you say it. Slowly, softly, maybe alone, maybe in your room. It feels strange at first. It feels new, but that is okay. Because every new thing feels strange in the beginning. Then you take another sentence. You say it again. You repeat, not like a robot, but with feeling, like you are part of the story, like the sentence is yours. And slowly, your voice becomes stronger. Here is a powerful moment for you. You don't become confident by waiting. You become confident by speaking small, again and again. Confidence grows from action, not from thinking. Now imagine this. You read a page from your book. You understand it. Then you close the book, and you try to say one or two sentences from memory. Not perfectly, just naturally. This small practice builds a strong connection between your mind and your voice. You are not just reading anymore. You are using. And using is learning. Another powerful idea is to talk to yourself. Yes, talk to yourself. It may feel strange, but it is very effective. After reading your book, you can say simple things like, "This story is good. I like this character. He is sad. She is happy." These are small sentences, but they are real. And real sentences build real confidence. Slowly, your fear starts to disappear, because now, speaking is not something big. It is something small, something normal, something you do every day. And this is how transformation happens, not in one big moment, but in many small moments. Now imagine your future again. You are in a simple conversation. Someone asks you something, and you answer, not perfectly, but clearly. And you feel something new. You feel proud. You feel strong. You feel free. This is the power of combining reading with speaking. And it all starts with one simple book. Here is your final thought for this chapter. You don't need perfect English to speak. You need simple English that feels natural. And your book is giving you that every day. In the next chapter, we will explore something even more exciting. We will talk about how stories inside a book can build your vocabulary without memorizing long lists. So stay with me. Chapter 7. Learn words without memorizing. There is a quiet pain that many learners carry. They try to learn new words every day. They make long lists. They write meanings. They repeat again and again. For a moment, it feels good. It feels like progress. But after some time, the words disappear. They forget. They confuse. Then comes the feeling of frustration. Why can't I remember? Why is this so hard? If you have ever felt this way, I want you to relax for a moment. Take a deep breath, because the problem is not your memory. The problem is the method. Memorizing words without feeling is like trying to hold water in your hands. It stays for a moment, then it slips away. But when you learn words through a story, they stay. Let me explain this in a very simple way. Imagine you see the word hungry in a list. You read it, you see the meaning. Maybe you repeat it, but there is no feeling. There is no image. It is just a word. Now imagine you read a sentence in your book. He is hungry. He has no food. Suddenly your mind creates a picture. You see a person. You feel something. Maybe sadness. Maybe care. And now the word hungry is not just a word. It is an experience. And experiences stay longer than information. This is the secret. Your brain remembers what it feels, not just what it sees. So when you read your book, every word comes with a situation. Every word has a place, a meaning, a feeling. And because of this, your brain connects the word to real life. This is natural vocabulary building. No pressure, no force, just connection. I remember a time when I tried to learn 20 new words every day. I worked hard. I repeated them many times. But after a few days, I forgot most of them. I felt tired. I felt disappointed. Then I changed my way. I stopped memorizing long lists. I started reading simple stories, and something amazing happened. I learned fewer words, but I remembered more, because now the words had meaning in my life. This is a powerful lesson. It is not about how many words you learn, it is about how deeply you learn them. When you see a word again and again in different sentences, your brain becomes comfortable with it. It starts to understand how the word is used. It learns the feeling of the word, and slowly, that word becomes part of your language. You don't need to force it. You don't need to push it. It grows naturally. Now think about your book again. It is full of simple, useful words. Words that people really use in daily life. And when you read regularly, these words repeat. Not in a boring way, but in a natural way. Each time, your understanding becomes stronger. Here is a strong moment for you. You don't need to chase words. Let words come to you through stories. Let that idea stay in your mind. Another important thing is this. When you learn words in a story, you also learn how to use them. You see how they connect with other words. You see how they change in different situations. And this makes your English more natural. For example, you don't just learn the word happy. You see sentences like, she is very happy. He feels happy today. They are happy together. And without trying, you learn how to use the word in real life. This is something lists cannot teach you. This is something only experience can teach you. And a book gives you that experience. Now imagine your daily reading again. You sit with your book, you read slowly. You understand the story. And without noticing, you learn new words. You don't stop too much. You don't feel pressure. But your vocabulary is growing, day by day, word by word, silently. And then one day, you use a new word in your speaking. Not because you tried to remember it, but because it feels right. That is real learning. That is deep learning. Now let us go a little deeper. Many learners feel they need big words to speak good English. They think simple words are not enough, but this is not true. Simple words, used correctly, are very powerful. Most daily conversations use simple vocabulary. So instead of trying to learn difficult words, focus on understanding simple words deeply. Because depth creates power, not difficulty. Here is another retention moment. Fluency is not about big words. Fluency is about clear and simple words used naturally. And your book is teaching you exactly that. Now I want you to imagine something. You are reading your book. You see a word. You understand it from the situation. You don't rush, you don't force, you just continue. And after a few days, you see the same word again. This time it feels easier, more familiar, and slowly, it becomes yours. This is the natural path of vocabulary. Slow, calm, strong, and this path never fails. Here is your final thought for this chapter. You don't need to memorize more words. You need to experience words more deeply. And a simple book gives you that experience every day. In the next chapter, we will explore something even more powerful. We will talk about how stories can change not only your English, but also your mindset and confidence as a learner. So stay with me. Chapter 8: How Stories Change Your Mind, Not Just Your English. There is something very special about stories. They do not only teach you words, they do not only show you sentences, they do something deeper. They touch your mind, they change how you think. And when your thinking changes, your learning changes too. This is why a simple book is not just helping your English, it is helping you become a stronger, more confident person. Let me explain this in a very simple way. When you read a story, you follow a character. You see their problems. You feel their fear. You watch their journey. And slowly, you start to connect with them. You start to think like them. You start to feel their courage. And without knowing, you learn something important. You learn how to keep going. This is not just language learning. This is life learning. I remember reading a simple story about a boy who felt afraid to speak. He stayed quiet. He avoided people. He thought he was not good enough. And as I read, I felt like I was reading about myself. I understood his fear. I understood his silence. But then slowly, in the story, he started to try. He spoke small sentences. He made mistakes. People did not laugh. People listened. And slowly, his fear became smaller. That story stayed with me. Not because of the words, but because of the feeling. And one day, I found myself in a similar situation. I wanted to speak, but I felt afraid. And suddenly, that story came back to my mind. And I thought, if he can try, maybe I can try too. And I spoke. Not perfectly, but bravely. This is the power of stories. They give you courage when you feel weak. They remind you that you are not alone. They show you that change is possible. Now think about your English journey. Many times, the problem is not your ability. The problem is your belief. You think, I cannot do this. I am too slow. Others are better than me. These thoughts become your limit. But when you read stories of growth, of change, of small success, something shifts inside you. You start to believe again. You start to feel hope. And hope is very powerful. Here is a strong moment for you. Your English grows when your belief grows. Let that stay in your heart. Now let us go deeper. When you read a story, you are not just learning language. You are building patience. You are learning to stay with something, to follow it, to understand it slowly. And this patience helps you in every part of your learning. Because learning English is not fast. It is a journey. And stories teach you how to stay on that journey. Another important thing is this. Stories make learning emotional. And emotion makes learning strong. When you feel something, your brain becomes active. It pays attention. It remembers better. It connects deeper. This is why you remember a story more than a rule, because stories live in your mind. Rules stay on paper. Now imagine this. You read a story every day. You feel something new every day. Sometimes happiness, sometimes sadness, sometimes curiosity. And slowly, your mind becomes more open, more flexible, more ready to learn. And this openness helps your English grow faster, because now, you are not just learning words, you are living the language. Another powerful idea is this. Stories give you a safe place to learn. In real life, you may feel shy. You may feel afraid of making mistakes. But in a story, you are free. You can explore. You can understand. You can grow without fear. And this safe space is very important, because fear blocks learning, but safety opens learning. When you feel safe, your brain relaxes. It accepts new information easily. It builds connections naturally. And this is how real learning happens. Here is another retention moment. You don't become confident by avoiding fear. You become confident by growing in a safe space first. And your book is that safe space. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt excited about learning English? Not forced, not tired, but truly excited? Maybe it has been a long time. But with stories, that excitement can come back. Because stories are not just lessons. They are experiences. They pull you in. They make you curious. They make you want to continue. And this desire to continue is the key to success. Because when you want to learn, you will learn. Now imagine your future again. You are reading your book. You feel connected. You feel calm. You feel inspired. And slowly, your confidence is growing. Not only in English, but in yourself. You start to believe, I can do this. And that belief changes everything. Here is your final thought for this chapter. You are not just learning English from a book, you are becoming a stronger version of yourself through it. And this is why a simple book is more powerful than many courses. In the next chapter, we will explore something even more practical. We will talk about how you can choose the right book for your level, so you don't feel bored or lost. So stay with me. Chapter 9. Choosing the right book can change your whole journey. There is one simple decision that can make your English journey easy or very difficult. And that decision is this: choosing the right book. It sounds small. It sounds simple, but it is very powerful because the right book will pull you forward, and the wrong book will push you away. Many learners make a very common mistake. They choose a book that is too difficult. They see a famous book, a popular book, a book that looks smart, and they think, if I read this, my English will improve fast. But when they start reading, they feel lost. Too many new words, too many long sentences, too much confusion. And after a few pages, they stop. Then they feel something heavy inside. I am not good enough. But listen carefully. The problem is not you. The problem is the level. When a book is too hard, it breaks your flow. It creates stress. It makes you stop again and again. And slowly, you lose interest. You lose confidence. You feel tired. And when you feel tired, you quit. Now there is another mistake. Some learners choose a book that is too easy. So easy that there is no challenge, no curiosity, no growth. They read, but they feel nothing. No excitement, no learning. And slowly, they get bored. So now you understand something important. Too hard creates fear. Too easy creates boredom. And both stop your progress. So what is the right choice? The right book is one that feels comfortable, but a little challenging. You understand most of it, but not everything. Maybe you understand 70 to 80%. That is perfect. Because now, your brain can follow the story and also learn new things. This is the sweet spot. This is where growth happens. I want you to imagine this. You open your book. You read the first page. You understand most of it. You feel interested. You want to know what happens next. You don't stop too much. You don't feel pressure. You continue reading. This is the feeling you need. This is the sign of the right book. Now let me give you a simple way to check. Read one page. If you stop for every sentence, the book is too hard. If you understand everything easily and feel no excitement, the book is too easy. But if you understand most of it and feel curious, you have found your book. And this one book can change everything, because now you will continue. And continuation is the secret of success. Here is a powerful moment for you. You don't need the best book in the world. You need the right book for you. Let that stay in your mind. Now let us go deeper. Many learners feel they must read big books to improve. They think simple books are not enough, but this is not true. Simple books are strong. They build your foundation. They help you understand clearly. They give you confidence, and confidence is more important than difficulty. When you feel confident, you continue. When you continue, you improve. And when you improve, you can move to higher levels. This is a natural path, not a forced path. I remember when I chose a book that was too hard for me. I felt smart for a moment, but very soon I felt lost. I stopped reading. I felt disappointed. Then I changed my choice. I picked a simple book. At first I thought, this is too easy, but I started reading. And I continued, and I finished it. That feeling of finishing gave me power, because now I believed in myself. And belief is everything. Another important idea is this. Choose a book that you like, not what others say is good, not what looks popular, Choose something that interests you. Maybe a story, maybe a simple novel, maybe something funny, maybe something emotional, because interest creates energy, and energy keeps you moving. When you enjoy what you read, you don't feel like you are studying. You feel like you are exploring, and this feeling is very important because learning should not feel like a burden. It should feel like a journey. Now imagine your daily habit again. You sit with your book. You feel comfortable. You feel curious. You read with ease. You understand most of it. You enjoy the story. And day by day, your English grows. This is the power of the right choice. One book, one decision, one change, and your whole journey becomes easier. Here is another retention moment. Success in English is not about working harder. It is about choosing smarter. And choosing the right book is your first smart step. Now let me give you one more simple idea. Do not stay with one book if it feels wrong. If you feel bored, change it. If you feel lost, change it. There is no rule that you must finish every book. The goal is not to complete books. The goal is to grow. And growth comes from the right experience. Now imagine your future again. You have your book, the right book. You enjoy it. You understand it. You feel connected. And slowly, your confidence becomes strong. Your reading becomes smooth. Your thinking becomes clear. And you realize something beautiful. Learning English is not hard when you choose the right path. Here is your final thought for this chapter. The right book does not just teach you English. It makes you want to learn every day. And that desire is your greatest power. In the next chapter, we will bring everything together. We will see how this simple habit, this simple book, can transform your English completely. So stay with me. Chapter 10. One book can change everything. Now we come to the final step of this journey. And I want you to slow down for a moment. Take a breath. Think about everything you have felt so far. Not just what you learned, but what you felt. Because this chapter is not about new ideas. It is about seeing the truth clearly. You started this journey with a question: can one simple book really be better than many English courses? And now, deep inside, you already know the answer. Yes, it can. Not because the book is magical, but because the way you use it is natural. Think about what has changed. At the beginning, English felt heavy. It felt like a subject, something you had to study, something full of rules and pressure. But slowly, through this journey, something became lighter. Something became clearer. English started to feel like a language, not a test. And this shift is everything. Because when English stops feeling like a problem, it starts becoming part of your life. Let us look at it simply. A course tries to give you everything at once: rules, lessons, exercises, structure. It feels complete, but often it feels too much. It feels fast. It feels forced. And your brain becomes tired. But a book gives you one step at a time. One page. One idea. One feeling. It moves slowly. It gives you space. It allows your mind to breathe. And because of this, your brain stays open. And an open brain learns faster. Now think about your daily habit. You read a little every day. You don't rush. You don't force. You enjoy. And day by day, something is growing inside you, quietly, naturally. Your vocabulary is growing. Your understanding is growing. Your confidence is growing. And the most beautiful part is, you don't even feel the pressure. This is real learning. This is deep learning. I want to share something very important with you now. Transformation is not loud. It is silent. You don't wake up one day and suddenly speak perfect English. No. It happens slowly. You read today. You read tomorrow. You read again. And then one day, something feels different. You understand faster. You think a little easier. You speak a little more freely. That little is your transformation. And those small changes become big results. Now let us connect everything. You learned how to read with feeling. You learned how to stay consistent. You learned how to think in English. You learned how to speak small sentences. You learned how to build vocabulary naturally. You learned how to choose the right book. All these steps come from one simple thing: a book. But not just any book, your book. The one you connect with, the one you enjoy, the one you return to every day. That book becomes your teacher, not a loud teacher, but a quiet one, a patient one, a real one. And slowly, it changes you. Here is a powerful moment for you. You don't need many resources to succeed. You need one powerful habit done daily. Let that stay in your mind. Now imagine your future one last time. You are reading your book. You feel calm. You feel confident. You understand the story. You think in English. You speak small sentences without fear. And most importantly, you believe in yourself. That belief is your biggest victory. Because once you believe, you continue. And once you continue, you cannot fail. There will still be days when you feel tired. There will still be moments when you feel slow. But now, you know the path. You don't panic. You don't quit. You return to your book. You read again. You trust the process. And that is what makes you different. You are no longer searching for shortcuts. You are building something real. Now I want to leave you with one final thought. You are not trying to learn English anymore. You are becoming a person who lives in English. And that change is permanent. That change is powerful. That change is yours. So start simple. Choose your book. Read a little every day. Feel the language. Trust your journey. Because this one small habit can change everything. And maybe one day, you will look back and smile. You will remember this moment. And you will say, it all started with one simple book. Now, your journey begins.